horror of glam rock. The second story in the first series of the 8th Doctor Adventures for Big Finish, and technically the third episode of the 8th Doctor Adventures overall, first released in March of 2007 and written by Paul Magers. Only one part, but they pack a lot into this. The 8th Doctor, played by Paul McGann, and his companion Lucie Miller, played by Sheridan Smith, arrive in 1974, specifically at the Nadir Motorway Service Station. Now, the reason why they've arrived here, one, it's the 1970s. Glam rock is in full swing, and the Nadir Motorway Service Station is where actually a lot of bands did pass by and did pass through. So the Doctor knows that there's some chance of glam rock there. However, something else seems to be attacking the service station, and mysterious creatures seem to be lurking in the dark. While they're at the motorway service station, they end up running into Flo, a waitress, voiced by Una Stubbs, who was supposed to be rounding off her night, but thanks to the creatures attacking the service station, she has to stay around to help. They also meet a mysterious woman named Pat Ryder, voiced by Lindsay Hardwick, and a musical agent named Arnold Corns, voiced by Bernard Cribbins. Now, Bernard Cribbins was no stranger to Doctor Who. He had previously appeared as police officer Tom Campbell in the non-canon 1966 Doctor Who movie Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. And he would also return in 2007 onwards, playing Donna Noble's grandfather, Wilfred Mott, starting with Voyage of the Damned, which would be later this year. However, this is after Tom Campbell, but before Wilfred Mott made onto the scene, and once again, given that we sadly lost Bernard Cribbins last year, it's lovely to hear his voice. I mean, we are going to get to see him again later this year in the 60th anniversary, but once again, just hearing those iconic vocals of his, you know he's good. I mean, anyway, Arnold Corns is an agent, and he's kind of the Svengali of the music world in the 1970s. And he is on his way to the TV studios for Top of the Pops in order to introduce his latest big hits, the Tomorrow Twins. Tricia Tomorrow, played by Claire Buckfield, and Tommy Tomorrow, voiced by Stephen Gately. Now, the interesting thing about this particular casting is that Stephen Gately was previously a member of the band Boyzone. Now, by this point in time, 2023, Stephen Gately has passed away, which is sad, but yeah. But the thing that I find interesting about his casting was actually when I did a little bit of research, the main reason he agreed to appear in it, he agreed to appear in it almost immediately, but not for the reason that you might think. It wasn't that he was a fan of Doctor Who, I don't know if he was or if he wasn't, but he knew that his dad was a very big Doctor Who fan. So when they asked him, would you like to appear in a Doctor Who Big Finish story, he went, absolutely. Which, you know what, I love that. Just someone who recognises that their family member likes a certain show, and so agrees to not necessarily be in it on screen, but to have a role in an expanded media. Good on you, Gately. Good on you. And the strange thing about the Tomorrow Twins is that, well, specifically Tommy Tomorrow, is he plays a guitar, but then he also seems to, whenever he plays it, he always says that the songs just come to him. But then as they look into it more and more, the creatures that are attacking them are trying to communicate with them through the certain frequencies of the guitar. And given another Doctor Who Big Finish story I already listened to, Whispers of Terror, I think monsters that live in the sound, that can actually be rather sinister, and I do think they do a great job with it. Now, Lucy also finds out that she has a bit of a personal connection with this, as it turns out that one of the people who they encounter, Pat Ryder, voiced by Lindsay Hardwick, is actually her aunt. Except this is the 1970s, Lucy hasn't even been born yet, and it's a little bit of a shock for both of them, because her aunt was a drummer of a band called Methylated Spirits, and Lucy wants to connect with her aunt like she used to when she was younger, back in the present, but at the same time, she kind of has to tell her aunt that she has just kind of fizzled out. That her aunt would always tell her things like, go off, go and see the world, make something of your life, do the things I could never do. And then having this, from Pat's point of view, having this young woman, this young girl, come in, tell her that she's your niece, and that you are essentially going to fizzle out and never make it big in the music world again. That's got to be a little disheartening to hear, and you do kind of see that things are really not very nice at that point. Now, this is the kind of era of glam rock, the 1970s, and Flo does say that she saw several of the big kind of glam rock names pass through the service station, including Jimi Hendrix, Lulu, and the Wombles, and the Doctor does mention this is also the era of ones like David Bowie, Mark Bolan, and Brian Eno, which is nice to see. Now, I am going to have to go into a little bit of spoilers here, because there is an element of the story that I want to talk about. Because partway through the story, Arnold Corns, played by Bernard Cribbins, he just decides that he's done with it. They are supposed to be on top of the pops that night, and he is never going to be able to arrange that again. So he says that they're leaving, even though the Doctor and everyone else tries to convince him not to go. And in the process, Trisha ends up getting killed, leaving only Tommy, and pretty much everyone is furious at Arnold for risking their lives for just a vain chance at fame, and just one of them's dead now, and everyone's just pretty cross with him. However, he does somewhat redeem himself later on, even though he's injured with his several claw marks on his legs. There's one point when the creatures are getting in, and the Doctor and everyone else, they kind of have to find a way to stop it using various pieces of equipment, and Arnold says to them, you go on, I'll hold them off. I'll hold them off for as long as I can. And everyone's just like, oh, well, just like, but it's like, look, I've already got an injured leg. I've done what I want to do with my life. Allow me to do one last good thing. And it's sent off supposed to be like this kind of big sacrifice. But then with a voice like Bernard Cribbins, I knew that in the back of my head, possibly he was going to die. He was going to get torn apart by these creatures. But I did kind of hope he'd make it, because, I mean, come on, there's Bernard Cribbins. But then you do have this shiitake mushrooms moment of the Doctor, everyone else, they need one specific part, and they ask him, where's the specific part? It's like, I left it downstairs. Fudge. And it's just like, they're cornered, they've no way out, and then at the last second, Bernard Cribbins comes limping up the stairs, holding the part that they needed, and ultimately it all works out, and they manage to... The creatures were known in the story as the only ones, and they've been telling Tommy that, aside from the human race, they were the only other type of aliens in the universe, which Lucy is able to depict quite quickly isn't exactly the case. And it eventually turns out that, yeah, they were lying, and they didn't so much want to help Tommy as they wanted to just get through to our universe in order to feast on the human race. I mean, Planet Earth became effectively the motorway service station for them, where they could pick up some decent food, stuff themselves silly, and then take over the Earth. Do it, or take over the universe. And ultimately, this is a story that feels kind of distinctly like the kind of glam rock era. Like, everything's hardcore, everything's kind of... God, I don't know how else to describe it. It's hardcore, it's fun, it's action-packed, and you know what? If you haven't listened to it yet, have a listen to Horror of Glam Rock. Feels distinctly retro. Give it a go yourself. So there you go, there's my quick little thoughts on the Big Finish story, Horror of Glam Rock. Oh, also at the end of it, when everyone's kind of packed up and leaving, Flo and Pat are just kind of talking, when suddenly a mysterious woman turns up, and this woman would later reveal to be the headhunter. Now, I've already reviewed the first story of the Eighth Doctor Adventures, Blood of the Daleks, where she also turns up at the end, and Human Resources, which I'll leave a small thing here, so the next story that you're going to do may be Human Resources, so I might jump ahead a little bit here, but I'm listening to them out of order. But it's my quick little thoughts on glam rock. What do you think of it? Let me know down below. And until next time, see ya.